Hey, hello everyone. Welcome to my channel. My name is Autumn and this is a little bit of studio time with me working on my really super junky journal. This has a paper cloth, as it's known, cover. It's quite slim. It only has about, I think, 7 odd pages, which over time, as I add bits and pieces, it will probably bulk out a little bit. The idea of these smaller journals are it's a single mood maybe, rather than a larger journal where every page is completely different. I'm really drawn to this one today, these pinks, almost like a strawberry pink there splattered on the page. So here I've bought some, okay, so I use traditional gouache, and one of the brands I use is Arteza. And I recently tried some sort of a metallic, they're called pearls, on a jelly plate, and I just really loved it as a glazing option, which I never used before because I don't really use metallics. I'm not drawn to them. Once I saw the potential as a glaze, especially for gouache, because you don't really have the transparency as you have with acrylics. So I bought their pearl collection, and what you don't hear here, because this is a voiceover, is me going, wow, wow, wow. A little goes a long way. You can see I'm rubbing off all the extra. Yes, I'm really impressed. I think the first one is possibly antique copper, then we have Aztec gold, I think, then we have bronze, and then a different sort of copper. So I'm doing a swatch here because there's so many that are quite similar, and I just really wanted to see their difference. And they are really beautiful. I mean, it just won't show up. Antique copper, Aztec gold, bronze, and gold, just normal gold at the bottom. Yes, and then this one here is pearl strawberry. And again, you don't hear me saying, wow, wow. I'm just really crushing on this colour. I'm just loving putting it down. Unfortunately, it just doesn't show up on the video. Probably won't show up when I put it on Instagram in a photo. But I will show you in a little bit, in a few minutes, when I'm done with the second colour as well. I will show you the sort of the glint, the metallic, a close up. But I'm just loving it, absolutely loving it. I'm so impressed with these colours. I do like their traditional gouache anyway. They have such a lovely mix of colours. I enjoy mixing my own colours, but sometimes, it's just fun choosing and picking a colour. And the metallics were just sort of sitting there for a while, and I used them here and there, but just not really that bothered. But now I just see their potential. And here I'm sort of brushing it almost with a dry brush. I'm just getting glints of it rather than thick paint. And that's how I'm really seeing at the moment anyway, the use of these metallics. And later on I'll use it with a little bit of gold. Just sort of this bright, it's almost like burnishing. Is that the correct phrase? Oh, here we go. Just wait for it, and there. So you just sort of get the sheen, you get the idea, but obviously much more beautiful in person. But just these pinks are just so beautiful together. This is just, no, so like I said, I love mixing colours, and this is the base colour that I've used throughout this journal. I actually have no white in this journal. What I did is create a really, really, really soft pink, which is the colour you see most on this page. And I use that as sort of as my light tone or tint, I should say, throughout the journal. But because there's so much pink, so much of the same hue on this page, I felt like I wanted a little bit of white. So I'm just sort of rubbing it here and there, giving it a little bit of highlight, and just enjoying colour, really, enjoying these pinks right now, which is all what to me is what my mixed media junk journals are about, is enjoying colour, enjoying just whatever the page calls me to do. I'm feeling like I want a floral, and I'm looking just to see what florals I already have. And I love tins as well. I don't know if any of you out there have a thing for tins. I definitely have a thing for tins. I've chosen this one with which has quite a lot of black. It's not, I don't normally do florals like that with so much black, but I'm liking the contrast. Okay, so we've jumped here to me making buttons. So take a thin bit of cardboard, like from a chocolate bar, really good chocolate by the way. I glue on a book page and let that dry, and then I spray on well, it's a concoction really. I couldn't tell you what's in it. I think it's a mixture of sort of browns. I think it's calligraphy ink, maybe even a little bit of watercolor. It's not coffee or tea, but it's that sort of shade. And just spray that sort of randomly about. Let that dry. Just grab some of the same similar cardboard and punch out a couple of circles, and I'll be gluing these together and then letting them dry, and then go back to this once it's dry, punch out. This is the top of the button, of course, and I'm just letting those bits dry. Sticking on this flower, and I tend to leave my florals with the edges not glued down, just sticking up a little bit, just gives a little bit of dimension to the page. So I'm just thinking, I think now what I want to do, and I feel like I want to add something to this. This is actually an envelope, and I'm liking that pearl pink. And I'm just brushing it again on top, that little bit of metallic, and a little bit on the scrim that's there on the edge. And of course you can't really see it again, but it's lovely and shiny. And just inspired to do a little bit more scribbling in those circles. Bit of charcoal white used there, and just feel like some red. I just suddenly feel like I want to see red in a good way. And that's a nice bright contrast there to the pink. A little bit of mauve for no reason other than just felt like mauve. So just having a think where I want to go. And you can see there, I'm just showing you how thin that is. And I think I'm going to show you, yes, this is the one that I art journal in, I would say. And this one is page or spread by spread. And you can see how different they are, that one compared to that one, very different to that one, and very different to that one. And this is, as I said, it's much more of a mood of a single journal. So just going back to the buttons, once they're all dry, sticking all the circles together. So that's 3 circles. You can make it as thick or as thin as you like, depending, on the look. Just wiping the extra glue off. I'll be letting that dry. Okay, so back to the page, just feeling like, I think that little bit of crafty brown colour that's peeking through underneath the paint makes me want to add a little bit of the same on this side. And I've decided to use this. This is actually a really large roll that I've cut down so I can keep a little bit on my desk, and just finding the right size, sort of taking the roll out of it there, and just finding where I want it. And I just had this sudden need to add a stitch floral. Not sure where that came from, but there it was. And my initial idea was baby's breath, but it turned into something else, something similar anyway. I just wanted this really delicate flowers on this side, something maybe about all the pinks and everything. I'm just choosing some ordinary cotton thread to stitch, because it's going to be quite delicate, so I want something quite thin. And I've gone for this gold colour, probably influenced by the gold paint that I was adding on there. And I'm just going to show you here how I start stitching. I put the 2 ends of the thread through the needle. So on this side is the 2 ends, and then go through once, leave a little bit of a loop, go through a second time, take the needle into the loop, and there you are. You have the neatest embroidery beginning that I've ever known. And obviously you don't need that in junk journal, but for those of you maybe who are starting to sew, and you might like that little tidbit. So I'm just speeding this up, And that needle cushion, I made that about a decade ago, and that little needle book on the left, I made that about a decade ago. Quite nice to have around. And although this is sped up, this is very, very slow. I'm taking breaths in between this, and halfway through I actually got a little bit impatient, so I took a really deep breath and getting that parasympathetic nervous system, activated and slowing down. And I knew that I needed this. My brain was very, very full, so I think I tend to go for details when my brain is full because it's what slows me down. It's what makes my ADHD brain impatient, but it's also what slows me down. And there we are. I just finished by taking one of the threads out, keeping one thread in the needle, going under a stitch, and then doing a single knot or 3 knots if it was in fabric possibly. So, and I leave them loose because we love lots of loose threads in junk journals, don't we? So I said I wanted to do baby's breath, and I've chosen this ivory, so this off-white colour, and it just didn't work on the paper. It was tearing through. So I just went for this sort of little star flowers, which came out really lovely actually. And I think maybe here is where I also got impatient, somewhere halfway through the flowers. Again, deep breaths and going with it, and then I was in the flow, and that was really, really wonderful. Got in the flow, my mind just relaxed and went, and yeah, and this is what, this sort of journaling is all about for me. It's just having that space to just let go, get into the flow, let go of the day, let go of the thoughts, let go of the stress and all the worries, all the lists, all the to-dos, all the overthinking. And it can take a while. I mean, I've condensed this down to 15 minutes. This is probably an hour and a half session. And it can sometimes take it that long, halfway through for me to really get into that flow. But I know that I'm definitely in that flow at this moment. So I'm using a palette knife. I normally use my fingers. I love to use my fingers, and I will be using my fingers in a moment. But I've just taken a palette knife at the moment because it just gives a different texture. So your finger can soften the edges, very cloudy look. Whereas a palette knife will give a sort of rougher look, and yeah. But I do love getting my fingers in there. Very tactile. I like to feel very much part of my art, not having any extra barriers. I do like working with brushes, but if I can remove a barrier, I will. So I'm just softening that edge for whatever reason, taking some off with a little bit of paint. Gouache is fairly easy to remove like that. So making the button-like holes and being careful, because I will always pinch myself with an awl. I just always do. I've put these a little too close, but that's okay. You can see my inks. I keep them in a flat sort of pencil case. Very handy. Doing inking on the edges with walnut distress ink, and then I take a lighter ink for no reason other than I just felt like a lighter ink. And yes, I use cheap loo roll rather than towels. What do you call them? Paper towels. Much cheaper. Okay, so I'm just choosing a thread now for my button. Nice dark thread, and stitch that through. And this pace is actually my pace throughout the whole time. Just very slow stitching, very relaxing. But obviously you don't want to see me do that for a long time. So, and I feel like I'm just finishing, and then I just decide to do some burnishing. I'm going with that word. Looking for a very dry, stiff brush. Don't throw away your old raggedy brushes. They're fantastic for all sorts of things in mixed media. I love these old, cheap brushes. So very dry brush, just taking tiny, tiny bits of gold and burnishing or whatever the word is over little bits of it, and obviously not really showing up, but just giving that little tiny little, I don't want to say pizzazz, I don't feel this is a pizzazz sort of page, but just that little glint of something, a little glint of something is going on without it looking, it's not bling, it's not jazzy, it's just a little something that your eye catches when the light hits it just the right way. And I'm feeling done, and it's been a wonderful session, and I'm so happy that you've been able to join me here. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I hope to show you more of these studio sessions over time. Thank you so much for joining me.